ArcgIS Velocity is ingesting the GTFS real-time feed, processing it, serving it up as real-time stream layers, but also archiving the vehicle movement activity away into blob storage so that we have this 5-day window of activity. And we're going to look at how ArcGIS Geoanalytics Engine can be scheduled to run these processing jobs against that data set to create additional value-add information products in our ArcGIS environment that can complement the real-time layers for downstream reporting. Import the tools that you need, authenticate with Geoanalytics Engine. Over in Velocity, this is just a peek of how those feeds are being set up to amalgamate and update a field so that we can distinguish between them and push it over into blob storage. Decide on your area of interest. So I don't want to use the entire data set. I actually want to filter it down to the Greater Sydney region. So what we do here is we connect to the container where the CSV files are, create geometries from the lat-long fields and transform it into the desired coordinate system. We then want to go to the ABS layer and go, okay, well, from that the greater capital cities boundary layer, we would like to pluck out the Greater Sydney boundary and use that for a spatial join so that we can select all of the transit movement activity that are within the Greater Sydney geometry, clean up some of the fields that we don't need, and there we end up with a data frame with close to 8 million records. I then like to just visualize what that looks like using the aggregate points tool. In this case, plotting a simple 1 kilometer hex bin layer of what that data set looks like. I don't want this actually in my environment. It's just kind of an eyeball of what's going on. My first information product I want to build is around congestion hotspots. Within the GTFS real-time, there's some fields to report on the congestion. So I'm going to filter it down further to go, all I care about is the bus activity where there's essentially congestion reported. And then I'm going to run the find hotspots tool using an appropriate bin size and sensible neighborhood setting. What I want to call attention to is this time step. So I don't want to do this for the entire 5 days. I actually want to slice it into these 1-day outputs to visualize and see how it's changing day by day. Then using a Spark data frame writer, output and update that data set in the ArcGIS environment. And then I can start to use that in output. So this is our congestion level and how it's changing day by day from that data set. Next one is a very similar one. We're going to look at the occupancy field. Again, understanding how that's split across the data set, filter the data frame down to the times where the GTFS real-time feed is reporting that there's limited seats available. Run that same hotspot tool with the same settings, but with this new data frame, push it out into ArcGIS for our second information product. Where is there limited seating across the network in the last 5 days? Then we can take it a step further and kind of drill a little bit further down and use the detect incidents tool. Similar thing, looking at this case just where the standing room only happens. We want to raise an incident and understand how that's happening so we can start to do more granular reporting of what routes that's happening on or maybe what vehicles it's happening with. That outputs a data frame that we could then write to ArcGIS, and then we can really start to slice into this data set to understand, well, which routes is this happening on the most, or looking at AM or peak time versus off-peak time or individual trips. So this kind of gives you that really detailed stuff that you can use in ArcGIS dashboards or Power BI or whatever reporting tools that you need.